There are moments in life when you begin to question everything you've ever been told, everything you've ever believed in. You might feel a sudden wave of awareness, as though the world around you is a script you never wrote, and you've just realized you're playing a part in someone else's story. For years, I walked the straight line, following the expectations of others, conforming to the standards set by society. But deep inside, there was a voice that whispered, "There's something more." The pull was quiet at first, like a gentle tug on my sleeve, but over time, it became impossible to ignore. I was being called to walk a different path, a path that wasn't defined by conventional rules, but one that led to something greater. The chosen ones, those who dared to live differently, those who saw beyond the veil, all share a common thread. We hear that call, and when we listen, everything changes. The journey of the chosen ones begins with an inner rebellion, a revolt against the narrative we've been told to follow. It's a rebellion that doesn't always scream out loud, but quietly grows within, like the roots of a tree breaking through concrete. The moments of questioning, the moments when you wonder if there's something more to life than just the grind, the same patterns, the same routines, these are the moments that define your path. In the end, it's not just about rejecting what's been laid before us. It's about understanding that we are capable of so much more. We are meant to challenge, to grow, and to transform not just ourselves, but the world around us. The path of the chosen ones is not an easy one. It's filled with questions, doubts, and challenges. But it is also the only path that leads to true freedom, the kind of freedom that can only be found when we embrace the unknown and trust in the journey. The rebellion within defying societal norms. I remember the first time I felt the urge to rebel against everything I knew. I was just a kid, sitting at my desk in school, surrounded by my classmates, all of us following the same routine. The bell rang, and we all stood up at the same time, walked to the same cafeteria, sat in the same seats. It was as though we were part of a well-rehearsed dance, but deep inside, I felt like I was suffocating. I started questioning the system. Why were we all doing the same thing? Why was I expected to fit into a mold that didn't resonate with my soul? I didn't have the words to describe it back then, but I knew there was more to life than just following instructions. It wasn't just school. As I grew older, I began to see the same patterns in every aspect of life. Society told me what success looked like: a good job, a house, a family. But none of that felt like it was mine. There were times when I tried to conform, when I followed the prescribed path. I graduated, got a job, and did everything I was supposed to do, but every step felt like a lie. I wasn't living my truth. I wasn't living for myself. I was living for the approval of others, for the external validation that comes from following the rules. One day I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I walked away from the life I thought I was supposed to have. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I had to go somewhere different. That's the essence of the rebellion within, the decision to stop living someone else's life and start living your own. It's not an easy decision. It's filled with uncertainty and fear, but it's also the only path that leads to true self-discovery. I wasn't alone in this rebellion. I found others who had walked the same path, those who had defied the expectations of society and had found something far greater than they ever imagined. We didn't all look the same, and we didn't all walk the same journey, but we shared a common thread: the desire to break free from the constraints of society and live a life that was authentic to our true selves. In the end, the rebellion within is not about rejecting society as a whole, but about choosing your own path, creating your own narrative. It's about recognizing that the world is bigger than the box we're put into, and that we have the power to shape our own destiny. The moment you choose to walk the unseen path, you realize you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. Conversations of the soul, the aversion to small talk. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with being a chosen one. It's not the kind of loneliness that comes from being physically alone. It's the loneliness that comes from realizing that the conversations you have with others often feel shallow, superficial, and disconnected from what really matters. Have you ever had a conversation with someone, and despite talking for hours, felt like you didn't really communicate anything meaningful. That's the essence of small talk, the endless banter that fills the silence but doesn't fill the soul. I've always had an aversion to small talk. As a kid, I would sit in the back of the classroom, watching my peers chat about the latest trends or gossiping about celebrities. I couldn't understand why these things mattered so much. I wanted to talk about the deeper things, the things that made us who we were, the things that connected us beyond the surface. But those conversations never seemed to happen. People were too busy with their own lives, their own agendas, to truly engage on a soul level. As I grew older, this aversion to small talk only intensified. I found myself surrounded by people who wanted to talk about the latest movie or the weather or who was dating whom. I tried to join in, but the words felt empty. I wasn't interested in filling space with meaningless chatter. I wanted to talk about purpose, about dreams, about the unseen forces that shaped our lives. But most people weren't ready for those conversations. They didn't want to go deep. They didn't want to challenge their beliefs or open themselves up to vulnerability. There was a time when I thought I was broken because I didn't fit in with these casual conversations. But over time, I realized it wasn't me that was broken. It was the world around me. There's a certain kind of freedom that comes when you stop pretending to care about things that don't matter. When you begin to engage with others on a deeper level, you find that your connections become more meaningful, more real. The aversion to small talk is not a rejection of others. It's a call to elevate the conversation. It's a desire to connect with others on a soul level, to have discussions that truly matter. When you find people who are also interested in these deeper conversations, it's like finding kindred spirits, those who speak the same language of the soul. It's not always easy to find these people, and it's not always easy to walk away from shallow interactions. But once you do, you realize that small talk was never the goal. The goal was always connection, true connection, where two souls meet, share, and grow together. The sage within becoming the unlikely advisor. I never saw myself as a leader, let alone a sage. Growing up, I was always the quiet one, the observer. I never sought attention or fame. But somewhere along the way, I began to notice something strange happening. People started coming to me for advice. Friends, family, even strangers would approach me with their problems, their struggles, and ask me for guidance. At first, I was puzzled. What made them think I had the answers? I had no formal training, no prestigious title. All I had was life experience and a desire to understand the deeper meaning behind things. I began to realize that being a sage wasn't about having all the answers. It was about being willing to ask the right questions. It was about offering a space for others to reflect, to see things from a different perspective, and to find their own answers. The sage within isn't someone who dictates wisdom from a pedestal. The sage is someone who helps others find their own wisdom within. I remember one conversation that changed my understanding of this. A close friend was struggling with a major life decision. They were stuck, unable to see the way forward. I didn't offer any direct advice. Instead, I asked them, "What does your heart say? What do you feel in your soul when you think about this choice?" It wasn't a question that demanded an immediate answer. It was a question that encouraged introspection, a question that opened the door to deeper understanding. My friend sat in silence for a moment, and then the answer came to them. They didn't need me to tell them what to do. They just needed someone to help them reconnect with their inner wisdom. That's what the sage within does. It helps others reconnect with their true selves, with their own inner guidance. It's not about being an expert or having all the right answers. It's about creating space for growth, for transformation, for self-discovery. When you embrace the sage within, you realize that wisdom isn't something you accumulate. It's something you share. It's a light you pass on to others, not by dictating, but by guiding them back to their own truth. Becoming the unlikely advisor isn't about title or status. It's about the willingness to listen, to understand, and to help others find their way. It's about knowing that we all have the wisdom we need within us. We just need the right questions to unlock it. Relentless inquiry, the quest for truth beyond appearances. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize that everything they've been told might not be the full truth. I had that moment when I was in my early 20s. I had followed the typical path that society laid before me: school, college, a steady job. But despite all the achievements, I felt empty. I started questioning things. Why did I feel unfulfilled despite ticking all the boxes? Why did the world seem to be full of contradictions? That was when my relentless inquiry began, a deep hunger to uncover the truths hidden behind the veil of appearances. It started with small questions. What is the real purpose of life? Why do we accept the status quo without questioning it? But as time went on, these questions became more profound. I found myself diving into philosophy, spirituality, psychology, anything that could offer insight into the bigger questions. I wanted to understand the truth, not just about myself, but about the world we live in. One night, I sat by the window, staring out into the night sky, and realized that the truth was never as simple as we'd been told. Everything around us, the news, the media, the systems of power, they were designed to present a version of reality that suited their interests, not ours. And that realization shook me to my core. I wanted to know more, to dig deeper, to see through the illusions. I stopped taking things at face value. I questioned everything, even the beliefs I had held dear for years. The more I questioned, the more I realized how little we truly know about the world. But in that uncertainty, I found freedom. I discovered that the quest for truth is never about finding a definitive answer. It's about embracing the journey, asking the right questions, and being open to the possibility that our understanding of the world is always evolving. The relentless inquiry didn't just change the way I saw the world, it changed the way I saw myself. I was no longer bound by the expectations of others. I was free to seek my own truth, wherever it might lead. This relentless quest for truth beyond appearances is what drives the chosen ones. We know that there's more to life than what meets the eye. And no matter how difficult or uncomfortable the journey may be, we continue to ask, to search, and to learn. The open heart and mind, balancing conviction with openness. I've always been a passionate person. When I believe in something, I believe in it with every fiber of my being. I dive headfirst into causes that resonate with me, and I fight for them with everything I have. But along the way, I learned that passion can be both a blessing and a curse. There was a time when my convictions became so strong, so rigid, that I stopped listening to others. I thought I knew the truth, and I thought my truth was the only truth. But then something happened. I started encountering people with different perspectives, people who saw the world in ways I had never considered. At first, I was defensive. How could they not see things the way I did? How could they believe in something so different from what I believed? But slowly, I began to realize that their perspectives had value. Maybe they didn't have all the answers, but they had experiences and insights that I hadn't considered. I learned the importance of balancing conviction with openness. It's easy to become entrenched in our own beliefs, especially when we feel that we've found the truth. But the true wisdom lies in being able to hold on to our convictions while also remaining open to new ideas, new experiences, and new ways of thinking. This balance is essential for growth. The open heart and mind approach isn't about abandoning your beliefs, but about allowing space for others to share theirs. It's about understanding that our individual truths are just that, individual. We may share common values, but our journeys and experiences are unique. By being open, we allow ourselves to grow, to learn, and to evolve. This balance is also key in relationships. I remember a time when I was in a deep disagreement with someone close to me. We saw the world through completely different lenses, but rather than shutting down the conversation, I chose to listen. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Through that openness, I discovered things about myself, about them, and about the nature of truth itself. The open heart and mind approach doesn't mean we give up our beliefs. It means we are willing to stretch, to grow, and to expand our understanding. We can be firm in our convictions while also remaining humble enough to learn from others. This balance is what allows us to truly connect with others and to navigate a world filled with complexity and contradiction. Questioning authority, a deep desire for justice. From a young age, I've always had a strong sense of justice. I was the kid who would stand up for others when I saw them being wronged, the one who would speak out when something didn't feel right. But as I grew older, I began to realize that my sense of justice extended beyond just protecting my friends or calling out bullies. It became a question of authority itself. Why do we blindly follow authority? Why do we accept rules and systems that seem unjust? That hurt people, that suppress freedom. My journey into questioning authority began with small acts of defiance. I didn't always fit into the systems that others took for granted. In school, I questioned the curriculum. Why were we being taught things that didn't matter? Why were we being told what to think instead of how to think? As I entered adulthood, my questions became more profound. I began questioning the very systems that governed our lives, the government, the media, the corporations. Why do we trust these institutions when they have so often failed us? Why do we give power to those who perpetuate inequality, who create systems of oppression, who ignore the needs of the people? The desire for justice is a force that cannot be ignored. It's a call to stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means challenging the very systems that hold power. But questioning authority is not just about defiance. It's about seeking truth and fairness. It's about acknowledging that authority is not always right, and that we, as individuals, have a responsibility to challenge and question the powers that be. I've had moments where I've been afraid to speak out, afraid to challenge the status quo. But I've learned that fear only strengthens the hold that authority has over us. When we allow ourselves to question, we empower ourselves and others. The chosen ones are not content to accept the world as it is. We feel the weight of injustice, and we cannot turn a blind eye. Our desire for justice is what drives us to question, to stand up, and to demand change. It's a deep-seated belief that the world can be better, that the systems that govern us can be more just, more compassionate, more humane. And as we continue to question, we move one step closer to creating a world that truly reflects the values of equality and fairness. Dreams as messengers, the spiritual significance of night visions. I used to dismiss dreams as nothing more than random fragments of the mind, bits and pieces of my subconscious trying to make sense of the day's events. But everything changed one night. I had a dream so vivid, so real, that it left me with a sense of awe and wonder. In this dream, I stood in a vast field, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. They were silent, watching me with expectant eyes. And then a voice, soft yet clear, spoke to me. It wasn't a voice from anyone present, but a voice that seemed to come from within the dream itself. "You have been called to something greater," it said. "Listen to the whispers of the universe, for they hold the keys to your destiny." I woke up with a start, my heart pounding, and I knew that the dream was more than just a figment of my imagination. It was a message. Over the next few weeks, I began to notice how my dreams often carried messages for my waking life. They were like guides, pointing me toward answers I had been searching for, offering wisdom when I was uncertain. At first, I didn't understand why these dreams had such significance, but the more I paid attention, the clearer the message became. Our dreams are messengers, carrying insights from a realm beyond the physical. They are a way for the universe to communicate with us, offering guidance, warning, and affirmation. The spiritual significance of night visions is something that has been recognized for centuries. Ancient cultures believed that dreams were a portal to the divine, a way to connect with gods, ancestors, and the unseen forces that shape our lives. And as I began to explore this concept, I realized that my dreams were trying to show me things that my conscious mind had overlooked. They revealed patterns, connections, and truths that I had been blind to during my waking hours. Dreams are more than just random events. They are a reflection of our deepest desires, fears, and longings. They speak to us in symbols and metaphors, offering insight into the areas of our lives that need healing or attention. I began to see my dreams as a form of spiritual guidance, a way to connect with the higher aspects of myself. The chosen ones often have vivid, meaningful dreams that carry messages of transformation and growth. These dreams are not just figments of the imagination. They are the universe speaking to us in a language we must learn to understand. When we embrace the spiritual significance of night visions, we open ourselves up to a deeper connection with the unseen forces that guide us, and we begin to see the world through a new, clearer lens. Transcendence of the ego, finding freedom in the universal connection. There comes a moment in life when you realize that the person you thought you were is just a construct, a fleeting shadow of something far greater. I experienced this moment in a quiet, unexpected way. I was walking through the forest on a solitary retreat, a journey I had taken to seek peace and clarity. As I stood still, listening to the sounds of the wind, the rustling of leaves, and the distant call of birds, I suddenly felt something shift within me. It wasn't a dramatic epiphany, but a subtle realization that I was not separate from the world around me. I had always thought of myself as an individual, a person defined by my thoughts, experiences, and identity. But in that moment, standing there in the forest, I felt a profound sense of interconnectedness. I realized that the ego, the part of me that clung to its separate identity, was an illusion. We all think we are distinct entities, but in truth, we are threads in a vast, interconnected web. The ego, with all its fears, desires, and attachments, separates us from this universal connection. It convinces us that we are alone, isolated, and apart from the world. But when we transcend the ego, we see that we are not separate at all. We are one with everything. This doesn't mean we lose our individuality. Instead, it means that we come to understand our true nature, that we are not just our thoughts or our body, but a part of something far greater, something eternal. The transcendence of the ego is a process of letting go. It's about releasing the need for control, for validation, and for the constant striving that the ego demands. When you let go of the ego, you create space for the soul to shine. You open yourself up to the deep, universal connection that exists beyond the boundaries of the self. In this space, you are free. You no longer need to prove yourself to the world. You are no longer defined by your achievements or failures. You simply are, and in this state of being, you find peace. I have come to understand that the ego's grip on us is not something to fear, but something to transcend. It's a part of the human experience, but it's not the whole story. The whole story is the infinite connection we share with all life, with all consciousness, with the universe itself. When we transcend the ego, we find true freedom, the freedom that comes from knowing we are part of something much greater than ourselves. It is in this freedom that we find our deepest purpose and our most profound peace. Healing the past, embracing the shadows of our journey. We all carry stories with us, some light, some dark. I had my share of scars, emotional wounds that I never quite knew how to heal. I grew up in a family that loved me, but there were things left unspoken, unresolved conflicts that lingered beneath the surface. For years, I tried to move past them, pretending they didn't affect me. I buried the pain, stuffed it into the corners of my mind, thinking I could just go on with my life. But the truth is, the past has a way of catching up with us. It has a way of showing up in our present lives, in our relationships, in the choices we make. It wasn't until I faced my past head-on that I realized how deeply those shadows had shaped me. I remember sitting in front of a mirror one evening, looking into my own eyes, and acknowledging the pain I had been running from for so long. It was a quiet moment of reckoning, but it changed everything. Healing the past isn't about forgetting or erasing the wounds we've experienced. It's about embracing them, understanding them, and allowing them to transform us. Our shadows are not something to be ashamed of. They are part of our journey. They are the places where we have learned and grown, even when the lessons were difficult. We don't heal by pretending that the past didn't happen or by avoiding the feelings that come with it. We heal by feeling, by embracing the emotions that arise, and by forgiving not just others, but ourselves. I realized that healing the past required me to let go of the guilt, the shame, and the anger that had kept me tied to old stories. I had to stop identifying with the victim role and start seeing myself as someone who had overcome, who had learned, and who had the power to choose a new story. As I embraced my shadows, I found that they no longer had power over me. They became part of my strength, my resilience, and my wisdom. It wasn't easy. The process was long and often painful, but each step I took toward healing brought me closer to who I truly was, beyond the stories of the past. The chosen ones are not those who have escaped the shadows. They are the ones who have learned to walk with them, to integrate them into their lives, and to use them as stepping stones to greater self-awareness and compassion. We don't need to run from our past. We need to face it, embrace it, and allow it to shape us into who we are meant to be. The altruistic spirit, the call to serve and heal. There's a feeling that grows inside you when you begin to understand your true purpose. It's a call, soft at first, but impossible to ignore. For years, I lived for myself. I pursued my goals, my dreams, my ambitions. But as I grew older, something changed. I started to feel an inner tug, a pull towards something greater than personal achievement. I began to realize that the greatest fulfillment comes not from what we take from the world, but from what we give. I remember a specific moment when the shift occurred. I was volunteering at a local shelter, serving food to those who had fallen on hard times. As I handed a warm meal to a man who looked tired and beaten down by life, something profound happened. I looked into his eyes, and for a brief moment, I saw myself in him. I saw the shared humanity, the shared experience of struggle, of hope, and of pain. That moment changed me. I realized that the call to serve isn't just about helping others. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings. When we serve not just as individuals, but as a reflection of the universal spirit that flows through us all. The altruistic spirit is not about grand gestures or saving the world. It's about the small, everyday acts of kindness that ripple out and create change. It's about recognizing that when we help others, we heal ourselves. I began to shift my focus from accumulating personal success to serving others. I realized that my life was not just mine to live. It was a life meant to be shared, to be a source of healing and love for others. The call to serve became a driving force in my life. And as I gave, I found that I received so much more in return, not material wealth, but a deep sense of peace, fulfillment, and connection. The chosen ones are those who hear the call to serve, who understand that true healing comes when we offer ourselves to others. It's a call that transcends the ego, that moves beyond personal gain, and that invites us to contribute to the collective well-being of the world. When we serve with an open heart, we not only heal others, but ourselves, creating a ripple effect of love and transformation in the world. The ongoing journey, embracing the awakening process. The journey is never truly finished. There's no final destination, no end point where we can say, "I've arrived." Life is an ongoing process of awakening, of learning, growing, and evolving. And as I reflect on my own journey, I realize that the more I awaken, the more I realize how much I still have to learn. The awakening process isn't always glamorous. It's not about sudden bursts of insight or dramatic transformations. Sometimes it's quiet moments of realization, small shifts in perspective that accumulate over time. Sometimes it's about embracing the discomfort of uncertainty, of not knowing what's next. But it's in those moments of uncertainty that the deepest growth occurs. I've learned that awakening is not a one-time event. It's a continuous unfolding. Every experience, every challenge, and every relationship offers an opportunity to awaken further. The chosen ones understand that awakening is a lifelong process. We don't ever stop growing, learning, or evolving. The journey may take unexpected turns, and there will be times when the path feels unclear. But each step we take is a step toward greater understanding, greater compassion, and greater connection with the world around us. The awakening process is not always easy. There are moments of doubt, fear, and confusion, but it's in those moments that we discover our true strength, our true resilience, and our true purpose. Embracing the ongoing journey means accepting the unknown, trusting in the process, and knowing that every step, no matter how small, is a part of the greater whole. We are not alone on this journey. We walk it together, each of us awakening in our own way, but all of us connected by the shared experience of being human. The ongoing journey is a celebration of life itself, of the ever-expanding potential within each of us. And as we continue to awaken, we become more than just ourselves. We become a part of the collective consciousness, a force for positive change, and a beacon of light for others on their own path. The journey is never over, and that is the beauty of it. We are always evolving, always awakening, always becoming more than we ever thought possible.